Hey, what's going on, guys? My name is Jelly, and in today's video, we're going to break down every single hero, at least the UR, the main 15 UR heroes. And I'm going to go over their skills, how I think they are, what do they work with, and all that type of stuff. So go ahead and watch this entire video. Make sure that you're liking the video and subscribing to the channel if you guys do enjoy. And I don't really want to take much more of your guys' time with this intro, so let's get to the video. Tank Squad, tank heroes, we all know them. We all hate them mostly. The thing is they're the most used heroes, the most used squad in the entire game, and there is multiple reasons for that, and we're going to go over a couple of them in just a second. What are the main heroes for the tank squad? Well, firstly, you're going to have Murphy, Kimberly, Williams, Marshall, and Stetmann. Those are going to be your 5 primary heroes. Now, there are a couple that become UR later on, such as Violet, such as Mason, and Scarlet, but we're not going to be talking about heroes like that today. We're not going to be even putting them into the same grouping because, unfortunately, for the average player, you're not going to be able to change them into UR until pretty much 2 or 3 weeks into Season 1. It's not worth it to talk about. This is going to be to help you decide if you want to roll with a tank squad. Now, there are a couple of things to discuss when it comes to squad typing, whether you want to do this or whether you want to do that. A couple of things are going to be this. There are 3 different echelons of heroes. So there's going to be defenders, which are, again, more capable of taking damage. There's going to be attackers, which are obviously more capable of dealing more damage. And then there's going to be a 3rd tier of character, which there is not a lot of these, but there are going to be supports, which is what I call them. They provide diverse buffs to teammates. Now that we know that the 3 basic types, we've already kind of discussed in my original hero video that there are a 20% buff. It's like a rock, paper, scissors. If you come over here and you look at it, as you can see here, up here is this rock, paper, scissors. Tank beats missile, but it loses to air, and there's a 20% buff. If you're a tank squad going up against air, they have a 20% buff over you. If you're a tank squad going against missile, you have a 20% buff over them. And if you're a tank going against a tank, that's pretty much it. That you're just a tank going against a tank. Basic information that I wanted to run through rather quickly. Another thing that's kind of basic information, but it does fly under the radar often, is that there are 2 types of damage that the game has to offer. There's physical damage and then there's energy damage. Now, there is a huge distinction between the 2, and we're going to discuss why that matters so much, especially in the tank squad. So, majority of heroes do energy damage, a majority of the DPS that you can buy, and since there is going to be 8 DPS heroes that you unlock through Battle Pass, through buying it, whatever you want to do, we're going to talk about them. It's going to be DVA, Morrison, Schuyler, Kimberly, Swift, Tesla, and Stetmann, and Fiona. I don't really like Fiona, but regardless. Of the 8 DPS heroes that you can buy, 3 of them are going to be at physical damage, 5 of them are going to be energy damage. That means that you probably are going to want more of an energy damage focused defense, or just, I guess, in general, overall, you're going to want defense for both. And that's important because going into our first hero, let's talk about Murphy. Now, I'm not really going to go over the auto attacks for any of these heroes' skills because they're all pretty much the same. There are a couple of differences, though, and we're going to go over them really quickly on Murphy. So Murphy has the auto attack. I don't really need to read this. He does damage, but the thing that he has in his auto attack that does separate him from the rest of the crowd is going to be this mitigation tactic here. Mitigation essentially reduces the damage received from the next auto attack, and it disappears after taking 1 auto attack and can stack up to 3 times. So if you get hit by your opposing team and Murphy gets hit by the auto attack there, he's going to get a token or a stack. What that stack is going to do is that the next time he gets hit by an auto attack, it's going to reduce the damage. We'll just say by 20% for the sake of the video. It's going to reduce that damage by 20%. Now, that is really nice. Mitigation is a great tactic to have. Overall, I think this is the best thing that he has out of all of his skills. Maybe second. We'll go over that in just a second. But mitigation, overall, I like it. However, again, auto attack, I don't really care for. It means nothing, especially in defenders primarily, but it doesn't really mean much in general because a lot of the auto attacks are the exact same thing. Let's go over what should be his best skill, and that's going to be his tactics. The problem with the skill is you guys can read just like I can. Upon releasing the skill, reduces your front row's physical damage taken by 26%. On the surface, sounds great. However, when you look into it, physical damage, front row's physical damage, and then it does increase to being the entire squad once you get him to 4 stars. But again, that means nothing. Let's talk about this physical damage one. And this is why Murphy is so hated among the community, and for good reason. With a majority of damage or majority of heroes doing energy damage in the game, you would probably want energy defense, especially on your tank heroes. Now, the reason that's such a big deal is because let's compare him, or let's just say 26% is what he has in the front row, but it's only for physical damage. That means if you have anybody doing energy damage, such as let's say you're facing an air squad, when two of their three heroes do energy damage, his buff does nothing against two of the three heroes. Two of the three heroes are going to shred him like he doesn't have a third buff. It means nothing. And that's the problem I have. And it's not just him. That buff is supposed to affect the entire squad. But if you're facing energy damage dealing heroes, it means nothing. It's such a useless skill because it doesn't do anything practically. Now, the one time it is useful is when you are facing a tanks or a missile squad, because two out of the three missile heroes that are DPS do physical damage. But the flaw even there is that tank already has the upper hand against missile, and you're just continuing to build that gap with this skill. There's a lot of questions to be had with it, and I wish that they would just rework the skill in general. I don't think they ever will, but that is probably the worst skill in the entire game. I don't think it's close. Although, actually, there is a couple of really bad ones, but this is the worst tank skill by far and away. His second skill, or his second useful skill, is going to be his passive, which is reduces all damage taken in battle by 16% for your entire front row. I do think that this is an alright skill. I like the fact that it's the entire front row and not just focused on one hero. I do wish it was a little bit better than 16%, but beggars can't be choosers. That's not the worst thing ever. Murphy, you can get him completely for free. He's the very first hero you can get, and again, completely for free. You can get him for spending 50 tickets on day one of the server unlocking. That's really the positives that he has going for him. He's also the second tank hero to get exclusive weapon. Only Kim gets hers before, so he's pretty quick with his exclusive weapon. And again, you can just upgrade him really, really easily because he's the first hero to get in the tavern, and he's the only hero for like 30 days. And then he's one of only two heroes for like 70 days. So you're going to end up with a lot of Murphy shards, a lot of Murphy puzzle pieces. So he is pretty easy to upgrade, and he's pretty quick to upgrade. Those are a couple of great pros about him. But overall, I don't really care for the guy. Oh, and also because I feel like I didn't spend enough time ripping into just how bad this skill is, right? I talked about how it's great against missile, right? But here's the problem. You face an air, you're at a disadvantage of 20% already, and two of the three heroes aren't affected by this. Now you're putting them at an even bigger disadvantage. And then it's not even talking about if you're going against another tank squad. All three tank heroes before Mason becomes UR all do energy damage. All three of them. So tank against tank, you're at a disadvantage. Tank against air, you're at a disadvantage. Tank against missile, you're at an advantage. Great. However, if you're facing a missile squad, you're more than likely facing a whale, which means you're at a disadvantage. Awful. I hate the skill that much. I could sit here and cry about it all day. Let's go over the second tank hero that you get, which is going to be Kimberly, and you could technically get her before you get Murphy if you spend the 99 cents or whatever it is. She is really cheap. There's a lot of great pros about Kimberly. She's highly regarded as arguably the best hero in the entire game, and mainly because of her just tremendously high attack skill. And now, granted, she does have the exclusive weapon. If I were to compare her to even Tesla, for example, it's higher than Tesla's base. She's a great DPS. You get her really early on, which means, again, kind of what I talked about with Murphy, you can upgrade her really easily for a really long time with all of your universal shards. She's a great hero, fantastic option, and I would argue, in my opinion, she's my favorite hero, even though I don't like tank. So there's a lot of great pros with Kimberly. I'm not, again, going to go over her auto attack in general. You can read that. But the one thing is, on a critical hit, Kimberly gains 1 stack of energy amplification up to the number of tank heroes in the squad. So that means that the more tank heroes you have in the squad, if you're running a 5 out of 5, you're going to get more tokens. So boosts Kimberly's energy damage dealt by 3%, stacking up to 15%. What that means is essentially if you hit 1 critical hit and you have all 5 tank heroes, you're running a 5 stack, you're going to upgrade her damage by 15%. Another 15%. Fantastic. I love that a lot. I think energy amplification is great, and it makes an OP hero even that much better. Now, there are a couple of downfalls with both of her 2 skills up here, and you're going to see it says random enemy and random enemy. I don't like that too terribly much. I don't think it's the worst thing in the world because I think the opportunity is there to attack the back row heroes. Taking out their DPS heroes before their defense is nice to an extent, but it also means that you could just have her, she could be hitting the tank every time. She could be hitting a DPS every time. The instability of knowing where she's going to attack does actually change the outcome of battles. I've noticed it myself in, battle reports. Same thing with some of these other skills. The just randomness of it definitely does have, it's a quirk, right? It does throw a wrench into your plan. So great skill. I just wish it wasn't random. I wish it had like a set skill or a set player, maybe the back middle or the highest DPS, highest defender. I wish it had a set player for any of these skills. Overall, though, kind of just like her DPS, I don't need to go into this too much. Like, I don't need to go into depth too much. This is just essentially firing rockets at a random enemy, and it does X amount of damage. I think each rocket does that much damage, which is fantastic. But by the way, for people asking, I'm fairly confident. I never actually got an answer for this. I'm fairly confident this 236% damage is what her base damage is times 2, if that makes sense. Like, I think it's 236% of her base damage. So I think that answers a question a couple of people probably have had in the past, but yeah, that's a little quirk, a little tidbit of information for you guys to know. And then passive boosts his hero's energy damage by 27%. That's okay because she does energy damage. I wish she wasn't so selfish, and I wish that she would just boost everybody's, but so be it. It is what it is. And overall, a decent skill. I think she's got 3 great skills. I wish the randomness wasn't random. I know that sounds weird, but that's what I wish. Overall, I like her though. I think she's a top 3 hero in the game. And also, again, you can get her really early on and you can power her up really fast and a lot. It just makes her that much more overpowered. All right, let's go over the third hero that you get for tank, and that's going to be Marshall. Now, there are a lot of things. I was going to say good, but they're not always good depending on which light you're looking at it. There's a lot of things with Marshall that do make him a unique hero. Number one being is that he is not an attacker. He is not a defender. He is a support hero. Now, there are obviously pros and cons with this, and we'll go over them in just a second. But overall, a couple of great things about Marshall is that, firstly, he is the second hero to become completely free, and at day 22 is when you can buy his battle pass, but at day 29 or day 30, he actually goes into the ticket pool. So he's a second hero that you can get completely for free. That is a really nice thing to have, especially for people that don't have a lot of money to spend or don't want to spend a lot of money. So that's great there. The second thing about Marshall that is good is that he's a plug and play option. You can put him anywhere. He is great for a lot of different scenarios, such as Code Boss. He's great for PvP. He's great for holding down certain things. There's a lot of great things with Marshall overall. I do think that it could be better, but those are kind of the pros that I wanted to get out of the way. Now, I kind of already leaked what I was trying to say, but with him being a support, it puts him in a different role than many other heroes, and that is he can kind of play any role. Now, he's not going to be the best at any role, obviously, because he's kind of a jack of all trades. He's not a jack of all trades, master of none. You can put him as a defender. He's not going to be great. You can put him as an attacker. He's not going to be great, but you're not putting him in there for his attack or his defense. You're putting him in there for his skills, and his skills are fantastic. Obviously, his auto attack, I don't care. I'm not going to read too much into these. It just does damage to whatever hero along its path. I think that means that if it's directly across from him or whatever spot he's in, he's going to do that damage too on the opposite side. Could literally just mean whoever, he's attacking. But his second skill is great. Upon releasing this skill, boosts your entire squad's attack by 15%. This is fantastic, and if you look into the second star here, it increases the crit rate by 10%. Fantastic. And obviously the duration is 8 seconds. I absolutely love this skill. I think it's fantastic. I don't think there's a lot of skills in the game better than this. And this is why people run him as a defender, and then they'll have a third attacker, whether that be EVA or if they have still a full tank, they'll put Mason in the back row because Murphy's just that bad. They'll put Marshall as their other defender. There's a lot of different plug and play options, but this skill is the main reason why people do that. And it allows you guys to just do so much more damage. You're going to not only have the damage of Marshall, which is higher than your average defender, but now you're having 3 attackers with higher than Marshall attack, and they're all being buffed by 15%. Just overall, you're going to be doing a lot more damage a lot quicker. This is great for Code Boss, particularly. It's great for zombies. It's great for like goldies, stuff like that. It's great for bosses, monsters, and stuff like that. PvP, not so much, because a lot of the times you're running against 2 defenders, and both of those defenders are able to kind of just all the attack that you guys are doing, all the damage. If you have no other option, or if you hate Murphy that bad like I do, Marshall's not a bad idea to run as a second defender for your tank squad. His third skill is actually also pretty good here, which is going to be his passive. In battle, increases this hero's skill cooldown by 28%. That essentially means that this is going to be faster. His cooldown here for his buff is going to be a lot faster, and that just means that more often, more people are going to be doing damage. A great opportunity for more there. And then also the second part of this also reduces all damage taken by the allied target with the highest attack by 11%. I do believe that means that essentially if you have Kimberly in your squad and she is your highest DPS hero, he's going to decrease all damage that she takes by 11%. Great skill overall. I like both aspects of that. I would say that, again, that's also a top 10 skill. I think that he has 2 top 10 skills. You could argue that he has 2 top 5 skills, but we're not going to go too much into that. I think they're both great. The fourth hero that you're going to unlock is going to be Williams. Now, Williams is a fantastic defender. He is the best tank defender that you'll have by far and away. It's not even close. If you could have 25 of Murphy versus one Williams, I am taking half of Williams. I'm not even taking the full. I'm just taking half. I hate Murphy that much. Regardless, his skills are fantastic, and they are just a leg above, a huge leg above Williams or Murphy, and we'll talk about it. His auto attack, I'm not going to go into detail on it, but then let's go into his tactics here. Let's look at his buff. Upon releasing this skill, boosts the defense of 2 targets in your own front row, so both defenders, by 45%. That is double what Murphy has to offer. And if you noticed, it doesn't say physical, it doesn't say energy. It says overall defense. That's fantastic. Absolutely fantastic. Now, if you also read down just a little bit, which is going to be the 3rd star, this effect applies to the entire squad. That means that it affects everybody. And while on Murphy, that may not have been a big deal, on Williams, it is, because you're facing a lot more, you're more likely to face energy damage than you are anything else. And of all the heroes that do damage to the back row, Stetmann, Tesla, Kimberly, Schuyler, all do damage to the back row, and his buff is going to pretty much counteract that, whereas Murphy's buff, which affects all characters, all heroes in the squad, is only for physical damage, and none of them do physical damage. They all do energy damage. So this buff works fantastic. I love that it affects the entire squad, and also it lasts 10 seconds, which is 2 full seconds longer than Murphy's. Just overall, by far and away, so much better. Again, another top like 10 skill here. Probably the best defensive skill that the entire game has to offer. I love it. Also, his second one is reduces all damage taken in battle by 25.5% for this hero. It is a bit selfish, but again, we're just keeping him alive longer, which in turn means that he can do this tactics more. And if you have Marshall as your other defender, he's going to essentially reduce the cooldown time, or he's going to have his own skill, which is just a never-ending fight. I absolutely love this. Williams is a fantastic option. You have to have him in your squad. Finally, the last here that you're going to get is Stetmann. Now, there is a lot of hot topic or hot debate between Stetmann and Kimberly, who is actually the higher DPS. And my simple answer is who gets their exclusive weapon first? It's going to be Kimberly, 4 seasons faster. Kimberly should be your number 1. Now, that doesn't mean Stetmann's bad, because Stetmann is fantastic. If you look at Stetmann's overall, his attack is 96.1k. And if you come over here to Kimberly, it's 95. So Stetmann has a higher base attack, and Kimberly has an exclusive weapon. Now, again, a lot of this comes down to what are you going to have more access to? And the true answer is going to be Kimberly, because you're going to have her almost 70 days faster than Stetmann, or 60 days faster than Stetmann, which means that your ability to upgrade her is a lot easier. And also Stetmann, you have to buy. You're not going to get him free for a long time. Overall, Kimberly is probably the better hero. However, Stetmann's pretty good. Now, Stetmann's auto attack is an auto attack, great. But his second thing is shoots 3 electric balls, each dealing energy damage equal to 476% of attack to a random enemy. Again, the randomness I hate. I kind of want to go back to this other one, and I want to show you guys something cool about this skill right here. It says he shoots 1 small electric ball, dealing energy damage equal to 300% attack to enemies it passes through. So if it goes all the way through the back row, if it hits 3 heroes, you're doing damage to 3 heroes at the same time. It is a fantastic option for auto attack. I love that. And also the fact that he does it random. If you have both hitting simultaneously, you can shred back rows. That's why people run Stetmann and Tesla and Kimberly, because you can just completely shred people's back rows. Also, his third skill is going to be increase this hero's crit rate by 25%. That's, again, fantastic. Absolutely love that skill. If you're running Stetmann, if you're running tanks, you could argue that he's the best DPS hero that there is. It's pretty much all the deep dive that there is about heroes. The unfortunate part with Stetmann is, again, you do have to wait a while, and he is not free. You do have to spend the money to get him. There's a lot of pros and cons. But one thing I will remind you guys of is that in Season 1, you do unlock drone chips, and I want to make sure that when you guys are running a tank squad, that you're running drone chips for tanks. It may seem silly, but a lot of people don't, and that will definitely change your ability to win fights. I'm obviously running aircraft, so I have an all aircraft, and my second squad is all missile. But if I had a third squad, it would go ahead and be that aircraft or that tank squad chip. So make sure you're doing that. And also, if you're running a tank squad, make sure that you're focusing on just tank. For example, if you're clicking on your hero, you're going to want to focus on tank. If you're clicking or if you're doing your tank master, you're going to want to focus there. A lot that you can do to primarily focus on specific heroes. And I do think that tank squad overall is not a bad option. And it's going to be really the only option for people that don't want to spend a lot of money. Unfortunately, the other two squads are better. I think both other squads are better. The best bang for your buck definitely has to be the tank squad. I think that there's a lot of pros to it, and it's the easiest one to get all 5 stars. It's the easiest one to max out really quickly. There's just so much pros with it. Unfortunately, it's just not as strong as either of the other two. Now, when you are comparing everything, such as price and availability, how fast can you get them, how strong can you get them? Overall, Air Squad is arguably the best in the game. Now, I know there are a lot of people that are really huge vouchers of Missile Squad, and, for good reason, Missile Squad is probably the strongest. But the overall best bang for your buck, in my opinion, is going to be Air. Now, not the cheapest, the best value in general is probably going to be the tank, as I said before, but the best overall, like, bang for your buck Air is going to be Air Squad, 100% in my opinion. Now, obviously, there are a couple of things to talk about really quickly based on the basics of being an air hero, such as if we come down here, which I am rocking currently an air squad, so I might have a bit of bias here. But if I click over here, you'll see just like the rock, paper, scissors that we previously talked about, air is strong to tank, but is weak to missile. So yeah, missile is going to have the inherent advantage, but over tank, you should be able to win pretty easily. Considering a good majority of the player base does use tank squads, that does make air kind of a strong meta. And I wouldn't say meta, but it does make it stronger than the average player. Now, there are a couple of obviously downfalls to air, such as being you're not going to be able to get your final air hero until day 77 or something like that. I think I wrote it down over here somewhere. I did not, but it's like day 70 something for Morrison. And then the other downfall to Air Squad is going to be the fact that your best defender and arguably your best attacker, depending on what you run with your Air Squad, they're the two last heroes that you will unlock. But again, kind of want to piggyback off something that I was already talking about. Early game, having both Carlie DVA and Schuyler eventually, that's a really, really good meta, especially early on, because 99% of the player base is running missiles, or sorry, not missiles, tanks as of that point, because missiles don't even unlock for quite a while. You get Swift and Tesla, but after that, it's almost 2 months before you get your next one. So again, kind of just like every other squad, if you're running 5 of one type, you will get a 20% buff to HP, attack, and defense, respectively. Whether you're running 5 tanks, 5 air, 5 missile, whatever you're doing, that's going to be your buff. And then kind of here, I'm not going to go over this because I have a in-depth hero guide just in general, not in-depth, but a basic hero guide that you guys can all go watch if you're not sure what kind of aircraft, well, what kind of squad you're going to run. You're more than welcome to go ahead and watch that. It will be at the end of this video, or you can go watch it now and then come back if you really want to. That's kind of just the basics about Air Squad. So what we're going to do now is we're going to go ahead and go in depth, hero by hero, basically what I think of them, what their skills are, how good are they, how valuable are they, all of that. Again, just like the last video, I will not be ranking them necessarily. I mean, I will be giving them a rating, but I'm not going to say, they're an S tier. I'm just going to say whether they're the best or they're the worst. And then let's go ahead and start it off right off the rip with DVA. Now, DVA you'll get on day 13 or something like that, I do believe, and you can get her completely free. Now, people will argue and say you have to spend 1,500 diamonds or whatever. I think that's free. If I only have to spend 1,500 diamonds for a UR hero, I'm considering that a win, and it's free in my books. So that's obviously the huge pro to DVA. The other huge pro to DVA is that she's actually the first aircraft hero to get an exclusive weapon, which is fantastic. Obviously, you want your arguably, and I'm going to say this now, in my opinion, the best DPS air hero available, and she gets her exclusive weapon in Season 1. I don't think that there's much debate when it comes to whether she's going to be the best or the worst DPS. It's going to be the best. Now, obviously, her base attributes are going to be pretty much on par. It's kind of hard to differentiate between base attributes between multiple DPS, but really where she shines is going to be her skills. All right, let's go ahead and go over his first one, which is auto attack. And just like the last video, I'm not going to go too much into detail on auto attack, but just like I said before, she does have this great extra attribute called Vortex Overload. I don't know why I said Lord, but Overload. Sorry, I just turned my light on, not realizing that the lighting is probably not ideal right now because it's like crack of dawn. Well, and by that I mean it's almost 10 a.m., but it's early on, and so the sun's hitting just right. Lighting looks weird. Regardless, her auto attack is damage off 421% to one enemy, whatever. But the Vortex Overload here is going to be pretty cool because it's going to boost her energy damage by 3%, stacking up to 30% there. Now, essentially what that means is that every time you load into a battle, depending on how many air heroes you have in your squad, since I'm running a 5-stack, you're going to get 10 total stacks of Vortex Overload. Because it's for each aircraft hero on your side, DVA gains 2 stacks. So you'll have 10 total stacks. That means that right off the rip, she's going to go ahead and start out with a 30% energy damage buff. And then every time that she does this auto attack, she's going to lose 1 stack. So for 10 times, you're going to have 30%, 27%, 24%, 21%, so on and so forth. But I really do like the fact that this is just an extra baked in ability that you have access to, because it's going to boost her energy damage by a lot, which again, we talked about before, energy damage is a pretty, it is the common denominator here among the best heroes. So yeah, that's going to be her first auto attack ability. And then her second ability here is going to be her tactics called Steel Barrage 2. Now, this one is fantastic. I really do like this one in particular because of the fact that it does 777% of damage or attack to all enemies. I really, really enjoy that. I think that's fantastic. That means it's, as you've said, barrage, right? Everybody's getting hit. I think that this is arguably one of the best offensive attacks in the game, or offensive buffs in general. And then when you combine that not only with already being insanely high in damage, but it also attacks everybody, so it's even higher in damage because DPS goes up when you can attack multiple people at the same time. But then she also has Storm Surge down here. And if you read here, it says upon hitting enemies for each aircraft hero in your squad, DVA gains 1 stack. So again, if you have 5 aircraft heroes in your squad and she attacks, she's going to get 5 stacks of Storm Surge. This is just bread and butter on top. DVA's attack speed increases by 20%. The effect can stack up to 100%. That means if you're running a full aircraft squad, DVA's attack speed is going to be upwards. It's going to pretty much double for 4 seconds. It's such a huge buff, and it's going to really help you in those close battles where you and another squad are relatively close in power. Maybe it's a missile squad that has 2 million power less than you, but because they're missile, they have the inherent bonus. This could honestly flip that for you. I really, really do like this, and I think overall this is probably a top 3 or top 5 offensive skill, like specifically for offense. I think this is a top 3 to 5 skill in the entire game. I'm curious to know what everybody thinks about DVA. I know that I hear a lot of split opinions. Some people like DVA, some people like Schuyler, and some people like Morrison. I think all 3 are good in their own respective ways, but DVA is going to be my favorite DPS. And then let's move on to our final, skill here, which again is just a basic one. It's going to be her passive, which is going to increase her crit rate by 29%. And obviously for every star you get, it goes up an additional 3%. For me, I'm already maxed out. I think this is pretty basic, pretty easy to understand, but yeah, that's DVA. And again, you do get her really early on for free, and she gets an exclusive weapon super early on. She's arguably the best, DPS air hero in the game, and you can put a lot of time into her, a lot of shards, a lot of free stuff. She's, in my opinion, untouched. All right, let's move on to the second air hero, which actually comes out the exact same day as DVA, but the reason that I put her after DVA is going to be simply due to the fact that you can't get her for free on day 1 like you can DVA when they come out. So we're going to go ahead and talk about Carlie. And again, a great defensive hero. I do think that she is the worst of the 2 aircraft, hero for defenders. I think that's just the truth. I do love Carlie. She's probably my actual favorite hero in the game, just due to the fact that I really fell in love with her the first play around, the playthrough that I had. I thought she was such a cool hero. I love the fact that she's a helicopter. There was a lot that I liked about her, and so she's my favorite. I can also admit that she's not the top, she's not the best. Let's go right over into her skills, because that's pretty much what everybody's here for. That's all they really care about. And let's talk about the first thing here. It's going to be her auto attack. Deals physical damage of 257% to 1 enemy. Whatever. Basic stuff. Don't really care. And then her tactics, it's actually going to be a debuff. Now, debuffs are really hit and miss among the community. Some of them are good, some of them aren't. And same thing with the buffs. Some of the buffs are good, some of them aren't. Now, this one, I don't know how I feel about this, but let's read it. Deals physical damage equal to 171% of attack to all enemies. I do like the fact that it does all enemies. And it reduces their energy damage dealt by 14.25% for 5 seconds. Again, another fantastic thing, but I don't like the fact that it's so specific for energy damage, because it's same thing with the tank issue that we had when we talked about the fact that it's physical damage and they're, what they're weak to is all energy damage. This is kind of the same thing here. What aircraft is weak to is all physical damage, and you're reducing the energy damage. I don't know how I feel about it. I do think it's a good skill. I just wish that it was more of a broad spectrum versus just being energy damage. Then the other second part of this is going to be deal physical damage equal to 360% of attack to one back row enemy and further reduces that target's attack by 15% for 5 seconds. All in all, it is a great skill. I just wish that it was more not specific to energy damage. I wish it was all damage in general. But overall, I think this is a great skill. This one I'm actually more curious on than anything else I've ever made a video on. I am curious to know what everybody thinks about this debuff in particular. I know that some people, like for example, McGregor's taunt is very, very just hit or miss. But I'm very curious to know what everybody thinks about Inferno Blaze. Go ahead and let me know. And then her passive is pretty, it's all right. Reduces energy damage taken by this hero for 40% and reduces all enemy auto attack by 12%. That second part is really, really good. I really like that auto attack damage by 12%. The unfortunate part is obviously it does end when she dies. I think that's pretty common though. That should be common knowledge. Again, energy damage is all right. Considering more heroes do energy damage than physical damage, I'm okay with that, but I wish it was just a broad spectrum, maybe a 30% all damage. I got a lot of backlash for talking about Murphy, and I need to clarify really quickly one thing before I go in a little bit further on Carlie. I'm kind of reviewing these heroes as if you're going into season 1, and there is a reason for that. My videos are here to help out a lot of new players. Like these basic guides or these in-depth guides are here to help a lot of new players that are questioning about whether they should go tank, missile, or air. These are what they are for. Now, sure, in season 6, Murphy, for example, might be a lot more usable, but season 6 is 2 or 3 years down the line for a lot of these players. I've been playing on this server, come on a year and 2 months, and we haven't even started season 3 yet. So you double that, it's going to be a 2-year timeline before people start season 6. Is Murphy going to be good in season 6? Probably. And is he good in very specific scenarios? Yes. But I'm not trying to go based on whether he's going to be good in one tidbit. I'm going based on the broad spectrum of the game or the overall rankings. And that's kind of the same thing here with all these heroes. And I wanted to get that out of the way with you guys and basically say, I'm sorry if you guys, maybe some of you don't agree with my opinion. And that's exactly what it is, my opinion. I respect yours. If you like Murphy, you love Murphy. If you like Carlie, you love Carlie. I love Carlie. That's pretty much it. Let's just go right back to Carlie really quickly and talk about a couple of her pros. Again, you can get her really early on, day 13, I do believe. The only problem is that you do have to spend 20 bucks to get her and her battle pass. Later on, she does become free through multiple different sources, whether that be the Hero Tavern, Glittering Market you can get her through, I believe Total Mobilization or Bounty Hunter, stuff like that. There's a billion and one ways to get her shards. I don't think actually Bounty Hunter. I lied. It's not Bounty Hunter. But there's a million and one ways you can get her shards through Hero Choice chests. Also, the treasure map I do believe she's in. So you can get her free later on down the line. But if you want her immediately, you will have to spend $20 on her battle pass. It's good value. Every single battle pass in this game is good value. I recommend buying it if you were on the fence. Now, the second fantastic thing about Carlie is that she does get her exclusive weapon in Season 2. Really pretty much early on compared to the other guys. I mean, DVA gets hers in Season 1, Carlie gets hers in Season 2. This makes these two a step above the competition, at least until they get their exclusive weapons, because it is a huge difference in power. I think it's another pro that makes just Carlie and aircraft in general so good, is that the second best defender for aircraft gets her exclusive weapon before the best one, which kind of evens out the stakes. And then once the best one gets it, it comes back to normal. I also think aircraft is probably the most interchangeable, that if you do a mixed squad with any other missile or tank, I think aircraft is probably the best when it comes to that. You can't do 3 aircraft, or you can't do 3 tank and 2 missile. You can't do 3 missile and 2 tank. But aircraft you can kind of plug and play wherever, because they have such broad spectrum buffs, and also they're just overall really strong. All right, so the third hero you're going to get is going to be Schuyler. There is a billion and one ways you can pronounce her name. However you want to pronounce it, I don't care. I will always say Schuyler. I know it's Schuyler. Don't care. It doesn't mean anything to me. Let's go over some of her great things, and such as her skills, and why I actually think that Schuyler is very underrated. And I'm saying Schuyler because somebody in my comments kept yelling at me, telling me to say Schuyler. So I'm going to say Schuyler, at least for now. All right, let's go over her auto attack. It's pretty basic. It does 309% of attack to one enemy. It's fine. Energy damage, again, we already went over that. But her second one is going to be her tactics. I really like the tactics, and we'll go over why in just a second. But to talk about it, prioritizes the back row. It's a huge buff. If you can take out their DPS before they can take out yours, you're going to win the fight. But it does deal energy damage equal to 927% of attack to one enemy, and then with a 20% chance to stun the target for 2 seconds. I think stun is very, very underrated, very underappreciated, and this could be a huge change, like a huge game changer for you. And what what makes stun so overpowered is in the stunned state, any tactics that are off cooldown will fail to activate and enter cooldown again. So it's essentially acting as if they didn't get their skill off, or they did get their skill off, but it did no damage. So now they have to wait to do it again. It's such a nice little thing. Now, unfortunately, it is only a 20% chance to stun. I wish it was a little bit higher, maybe even 50-50. 20% does make it on the low end there. But overall, if you can take away, not only are you doing 930% damage to somebody in the back row, which is already a huge buff, but then you add on the fact that you could potentially take away their ability to hit you, or, your entire squad with their tactics. Overall, I think this is probably, in my opinion, the best skill in the game. I can definitely see why this wouldn't be rated in the top for a lot of people, mainly due to the fact that it is only 20% and it is only for 2 seconds. But I think in the perfect storm, if you can get Schuyler to just pretty much, if everything hits, down the line, Schuyler's really, really nice, really, really overpowered, as long as stun actually works. And then obviously her passive boosts this hero's attack by 40%. I like that a lot. It's 40%, whatever. It's a huge buff for her. Obviously, none of these are really going to help most people unless they're defenders. But 40% attack is nice. Again, I think she unlocks pretty early on. I think it's like day something up here. Let me go see, day 36. Yeah, day 36 is when she unlocks for us. You do have to buy her battle pass if you want to get her early on. 20 bucks. Again, great value. Battle passes are fantastic. I think that she's a great purchase for everybody, and she will make a huge difference on your squad. And then she gets her exclusive weapon in season 3. So now we're getting to the point where they are falling a little bit behind, and season 3 is a little bit late to get an exclusive weapon. But I think that her skills overall are going to be making up for when she gets her exclusive weapon in general. I think that there's a lot of pros about Schuyler, and I know a lot of people other than me also believe that as well. Okay, so that's going to be it on her. We're going to kind of dive right into the best defender for Air. Now, again, not my favorite. And also, he gets his exclusive weapon in season 4, which is a huge blow. And he does come out really late. It's like day 63 or something like that. So just a perfect storm of, it takes a while to get him. It's harder to upgrade him. His exclusive weapon doesn't come out till later. But he does more than make up for that, in my opinion, with just everything that he is, everything that he's a part of. Now, he is arguably the best defender in Last War in general. This is not just for an aircraft thing. You could probably put him at number 1 and people wouldn't bat an eye. Lucius is very good. He's very, very mix and matchable. You could put him into any squad. You could put him in a 4-1 squad and he would be fine. You could put him in a 3-2 squad and he'd be fine. I like his skills overall. His auto attack is 309% of attack to one enemy. Don't care. Tactics is kind of where he makes his bread and butter. Now, upon releasing this skill, he reduces your entire squad's energy damage taken by 19% for 8 seconds. I think that that's, like, really good. I don't think people are going to like that because it's energy damage. I don't know. Now, the reason that this is so plug and playable is because, again, every squad has somebody that does energy damage, including missile. And also because the 20% reduced damage for energy in particular is also a huge buff. And it being 8 seconds is nice. I kind of lied when I said that's his bread and butter. I kind of meant his passive down here is going to be his bread and butter, which is in battle, your front row takes 13% reduced damage and also 13% reduced energy damage. So if you're facing somebody else that does energy, it's going to be a 26% reduction of energy damage to your entire front row, which is fantastic. And then when you mix in his tactics here, it's going to be a 50% energy damage reduction. That's insane, especially for your front row. Obviously, against Missile, it's a little bit trickier, but considering Missile's best DPS is Tesla, who is an energy damage dealing hero, I think that this is overall, once you combine everything here and you add it up, that's a huge, huge buff for your squad, whatever squad you're running. I don't care whether you're running missile, tank, or air. Lucius being there and having all of that is a fantastic addition. Now, I know that I'm clearly playing into my energy damage bias here by talking about that, but it's just the truth, right? When a good majority of the best DPS heroes in the game are doing energy damage, it's something that you have to consider. Granted, later on, Mason becomes UR and he does physical damage, and there's a couple of other heroes that come UR that also do physical damage. But when we're talking about the short term, gain here, when we're talking about the first 3 or 4 months of the game, the first even year of the game, Lucius is going to be a huge addition. And finally, let's go over the best. Well, I shouldn't say the best. I should say a lot of people's favorite, a DPS aircraft hero, but he does have a few flaws. Unfortunately, he gets his exclusive weapon in Season 5. He is the very last hero to unlock, I believe, besides Fiona and Adam. He would take forever to get him. Getting his shards is almost impossible unless you're paying for them daily. There's just a lot of flaws with Morrison that kind of brings him down a pedestal, but him being a physical damage aircraft hero is phenomenal because if you're going against other aircraft, he is going to help pretty much melt them, which is why a lot of people use Morrison as their main DPS when it comes to air. Overall, his skills aren't horrible. Attacks with a minigun, physical damage. This is his auto attack, does 310% damage to one enemy. His tactics is used as a minigun to attack 10 times. So his tactics is going to be used as a minigun to attack 10 times, each hit dealing physical damage equal to 200% of attack to one random enemy, while reducing the target's defense by 5% up to 25% for the same target for 9 seconds. There's a lot to take in. I think it's a good skill. I do wish it wasn't random every time. I obviously have very much shown my disdain for being random. I think overall, this is a great tactics skill, especially when you consider it being physical damage and 99% of heroes do energy damage or energy defense. And if he attacks the same enemy 10 times, which is obviously very, very rare to get 1 in 5 rolls 10 times in a row, I don't think that's ever going to happen, but if you did, you could hypothetically do 2000% attack to one random enemy and also have their damage or their defense reduced by 25% for 9 seconds. I think it's a pretty good skill. I don't need to spend too much time on it. I think it's just overall, I'd probably put this in like maybe a B tier skill, maybe A, depending on what you think. But then finally, he's going to be his passive, boosts his hero's physical damage by 30%. All right, I wish it was 40% like some of the other heroes, but 30% is 30%, so we'll take the buff. So this is a post-editing kind of clarification, and I felt bad because I completely forgot about this part in the video when talking about it. And I was going to go ahead and talk about the best formations for aircraft. Now, I am going to do a future video about my favorite formations, not including, the basic, which is all 5 being the same hero type. But I did really quickly want to say that I do think that the best formation for air is going to be all 5 of the same type. However, if you want to run an all energy squad, it is okay to take out Morrison and run Tesla or Kimberly. I do think that they're a great combination, especially with Schuyler. I like the Tesla Schuyler Schuyler combo. I really, really enjoy that. I think that they complement each other very well, with both of them attacking primarily the back row and Carlie attacking everybody, DVA attacking everybody. The aircraft squad mixed with, Tesla in the back would be huge if you wanted to run that. Otherwise, I don't really think that there's a whole lot of combos early game or, by the time Season 1 rolls around. I don't think there's a whole lot of combos you can roll with aircraft besides 5-on-5 or putting Tesla or Kimberly in instead of Morrison. So all in all, I think I've kind of already laid it out where I rank these heroes, but number 1 overall is going to be DVA. I think DVA is by far and away the best aircraft hero. I don't think there's much competition there. Number 2 for me is going to be Lucius. Number 3 is going to be Schuyler. Number 4 is going to be Carlie. And then number 5 is going to be Morrison. I think Morrison has a lot of great plays, a lot of great tactics, techniques. You can put him on a lot of squads and he would work. However, my problem with him is just how late he unlocks and how much you have to spend money in order to get Morrison. And then his exclusive weapon coming out in Season 5. There's just a lot that goes on with Morrison that does make him a little bit unplayable sometimes. Again, he does have his pros. He does have his, everything. I'm not saying that a single one of these heroes is the worst hero ever. I'm still taking them over purple. I'm still taking them over blue. And I'm still taking them over some of the other orange. But overall, in terms of aircraft, Morrison is going to be 5th for me. Let's talk about the missile squad. And we're going to go over right off the rip. I'm not even going to try to weigh a bunch of stuff. I'm just going to jump straight into it and say, we got to weigh the pros and cons to missile. And the first pro is that it's arguably the strongest squad in the game, no matter like who's running it, whether you're a whale or a small player or a medium spender, whatever the case may be. Missile is highly regarded as arguably the strongest. However, that's pretty much the end of it. Oh, and I guess the other pro is that it does have the least amount of counters in the game. So like it's the hardest to fight against in terms, obviously it's the strongest, we know that, but it's also the hardest to counter against like full on. So that's also another pro. But other than that, that's kind of the list. That's it. Like there's not a lot of pros when it comes to the missile squad. So let's jump into a couple of the cons, and you guys will start to understand really quickly just why I have so many cons for the missile squad. The first one is going to be that it is by far and away the most expensive missile, or it's the most expensive squad to run, mainly just due to the fact of how late missile releases compared to everything else. The last hero that you get is missile. Actually, two of the last heroes that you get are missile, and it's like you get them at, you know, almost 4 months into the game. So well, a little over 3 months into the game, you get your final missile hero, and by then every other every other person's heroes have been leveled up and tiered into Wall of Honor, gear, stuff like that. So they already have the inherent advantage in terms of whether you have to spend to catch up or not. And to kind of piggyback off that, we'll go into the next one, which is that you do have the longest wait time between getting your first and your last missile hero. And honestly, it's just like overall, when you're talking about getting heroes, Missile Squad is always going to be the last one because of the last 5 heroes, 3 of them are missile. And it's so hard to obtain a good missile squad because you get your first one at like day 15 or something, and then you don't get your next one until like day 43. And then after that, it's day 90. It's like there's such a big gap between all of it. It's not really viable until the end of season 0 or close to season 1. And then finally, to kind of go off that most expensive and the longest takes, really the only people that you're ever going to see running a missile squad are going to be like a whale, for example. Like I have a missile squad, but this is not my missile. Not my primary. It's not even technically my secondary. If I shifted some gear around, it could be there, but there is a reason that I don't have this setup the way that, most people would. But overall, I mean, it is a great squad. It's just very, very, very hard to obtain and hold a missile squad where you're actually going to be somewhat competitive with other people running missile squads. All right, so that's kind of the pros and cons that I can think of right off the top of my head. And now we're going to kind of do a deep dive into each one of the heroes, their specialties, their weaknesses, and we're going to go in order that they release. Now, technically, 2 of them come out the same day. That's going to be Swift and Tesla. But because you can get Swift completely for free on literally the first, week that he's out or the first day that he's out, we're going to cover Swift first. So when talking about Swift, he does come out on like day 15, give or take, roughly around that. He comes out of the wheel spin. I don't know if it's changed, but it's been that wheel spin for years now. Maybe they've changed it since then, but he does come out of the wheel, and if you just log in for the 6 days that the wheel's active or the 7 days that the wheel's active, you get 7 of his shards guaranteed for free. And then, after like 10 spins or something like that, you get 10 of his shards guaranteed. So you're easily going to get him, and I think it's 500 diamonds per spin. So 1,500 diamonds, you're going to get a UR hero, and arguably one of the top UR missile heroes. With that being said, it is definitely worthwhile to spend those 1,500 diamonds on him. I think it is, same thing with the DVA. I think it's just a great idea for you guys. But let's just kind of talk about it. I mean, his base stats are pretty much what everybody's base stats are, but one thing that separates Missile from the rest of them is that Missile is more dedicated and predicated on physical damage being their main aspect here. So 2 of the 3 DPS for Missile are actually going to be physical damage, and the first one that we're going to go ahead and take a look at is Swift. Now, one more thing about Swift before I look into his skills and stuff like that is that Swift is actually the first DPS hero UR that you get for quite some time, I do believe. I think like the second closest one that you're going to get is going to be Morrison, and that's at like day 70. So, outside of having Mason as your other DPS hero who's not UR until after season 1 or until season 1, Swift is going to be a huge advantage for a lot of squads to run because they don't really have counters to physical defense unless you're running the Murphy's combo in season 0, which is not very common. So yeah, Swift is pretty good. I would say when you get him, he's not going to be as useful like right off the rip just due to the fact that Murphy is a huge counter to Swift, but give that like day 40 range-ish, day 50 range when people are starting to move Murphy out and they put Williams in and they have have Carlie and stuff like that, Swift does become an absolute dog. But let's kind of look into his skills now. So as you can see here, we have targeted strike. This is going to be his auto attack. I don't ever really go over the auto attacks, but they do have sometimes these specialties here. So he deals 375% of attack and small radius around the enemy with the lowest current HP percentage, which is really, really nice. I do think that that just helps because I know people don't like that, but the sooner you can get one person out, the faster and easier it is for you as a, a player to, well, for your squad to start eliminating others. So one person, once you kill one person, that's one person less doing damage. That's one person less taking damage. That's one less ability. So being able to focus on one, hero at a time is actually kind of underappreciated in here, but we're going to go ahead and take a look at Burn here. So Burn deals continuous physical damage equal to 10% of Swift's attack per second in that last 10 seconds. Burn's pretty good, I'm not going to lie. The maximum stack that an enemy can have is a number of missile vehicle heroes in Swift's squad, up to 5 stacks. So again, it's just extra damage. You can't be mad at that. It's pretty good considering, it's only 10%, but it's like 10% is still 10% and it lasts for up to 50 seconds. You know what I mean? Like, I guess maybe not up to 50 seconds. I'm not sure I'm understanding that. The maximum stacks an enemy can have is the number, yeah, so up to 5. So I'm assuming it's the 5 is either only going to affect the 10% or the seconds. I don't know which, but either way, that doesn't really change the outcome. It's still pretty good. So let's go over his second one, which is going to be his tactics here, and it's going to be weakness targeting, I guess is the name of this one, and it's going to deal physical damage equal to we'll just round up, we'll say 700% of attack to 3 random enemies. I don't like randomness. I've always been very predicated on the fact that I don't like randomness. However, if you read this second part here, which is after each skill cast, this increases the hero's attack by 5% until the end of battle. This effect can stack infinitely. So this is actually a really good pro to his tactics here. I don't like randomness. However, this specific thing, this specific caveat does make up for it, at least in my opinion. I think that this changes a lot just due to the fact that being able to increase your attack every time that you run this skill is going to increase the skill overall. It's kind of like a staircase. Every time you do it, you're taking a step up in damage. And then every time you do it, you're taking a step up in damage. So it's infinitely more damage as long as Swift is alive. Now, again, the skill could be better, but that's something I noticed with a lot of the DPS when it comes to physical damage, that their skills aren't really that special. It's good, not great. I do like it, but I still, again, good, not great. And we're going to finally go over his passive here, which is pretty simple, which is increase this hero's crit rate by 28% in battle. I think that that's, whatever, right? So cool. I like it. Crit rate by 28% is a nice addition, to have, but I wouldn't say it's anything to fawn over. All right, we're going to go into our next hero, which is actually going to be Tesla. Oh, I'm so sorry. Before I continue though, let's finish up a couple of things about Swift really quickly. He does get his exclusive weapon in season 2, which is very nice and beneficial, especially for people, because pretty much until season 2, that's when your exclusive weapons are going to be a huge deal. Like after that, it's like whatever, because you already now have a full squad of exclusive weapons, but the fact that he gets it in season 2 is pretty beneficial here. And that's pretty much the only other thing I had to say about it before I moved on. And now we're going to go ahead and talk about Tesla. Now, Tesla, again, comes out the exact same day as Swift. Unfortunately, with him, you do have to buy his $20 battle pass, or he becomes free later on in the glittering market. You can get his shards, and there's a couple of other ways you could do it. You can get it for $5 eventually. Well, actually, no, I lied. You can't, because they just took that away. Completely forgot about that. But he's the second missile drop. That's pretty much it. His $20 pass is, obviously a good value. I think all of the battle passes in this game are pretty good value. He does get his exclusive weapon in season 1, which is absolutely phenomenal, especially considering in season 1, this is when people are starting to finally transition into missile, and physical stuff. But what makes Tesla so unique compared to the others is that he is actually an energy damage based hero, and that's very against the grain when it comes to missile. Now, Tesla is actually arguably the best hero in the game. You could ask a lot of people with between his skills, the fact that he's an energy damage missile means that he counters his own, his own people. There is very much a huge group of people that believe Tesla is by far and away the best hero in the game. Now, with that being said, we're going to go right into his skills, and we're going to look at these because I can't really look at base stats because I do have his exclusive weapon. I don't have it upgraded right now because, again, I'm not running it. But we're going to go ahead and take a look at his stats really quickly. And we're going to look at his auto attack, which is deals energy damage 340% of attack to one enemy and applying 1 stack of inductive current to the target. Now, inductive current deals continuous energy damage equal to 3% of Tesla's attack per second. So kind of like what we're looking at with the Swift situation, but this lasts 30 seconds. And then again, kind of the maximum stacks, it can go up to 15 stacks. I don't know what the stack means because I don't know if the stack means that it's going to increase the damage or if it's just going to increase the time. If it just increases the time, it's again a great thing. If it increases the damage, the percentage, also great. Like none of that really makes a difference. I think that overall, just having that extra overtime damage is fantastic. So overall, pretty good skill. We're going to go ahead and take a look at his tactics here. We're going to go prioritizes the back row with powerful electric currents, dealing energy damage equal to 1016% of attack to 3 enemies. Absolutely fantastic skill. I know I've said before I don't like the randomness. However, I don't consider this to be random. I consider this to be a very, very broken skill, considering the fact that this will literally take out all of the DPS before they have the opportunity to hit you and do some serious damage. This is why Tesla is so revered, mainly just because of this skill here. So what this essentially says is, hey, you're a missile squad and you're going up against a tank squad. The tank squad has the inherent advantage. However, Tesla can kind of bypass that just by skipping over the defenses. And DPS absolutely shreds other DPS because they don't really have the defensive skills that are necessary to defend. When it comes to Tesla using this skill here, it's going to be 25 times more effective considering it's the back 3 heroes versus the front 2. It's so broken, and especially at the highest like percentage, 1000% is absolutely phenomenal. This is my favorite, this is my literal favorite skill in the game, and I think that this is the best skill in the game. Not top 2, not top 3, not top 5. I think it is the #1 skill in the game. And then his passive, pretty simple. Boosts his hero's energy damage by 26%. Fantastic, great. I've never really gone over these because these all do the same thing. So that's pretty much all I have to say on Tesla. We're going to go ahead and cover McGregor now. McGregor is going to be the first aircraft. Wow. The first missile defender that you get in the game. I think you get him at like day 40 something roughly. It's not always going to be the same, I don't think. I think every server has it differently, whatever days are coming out. But again, he is the first defender that comes out for missile, day 40-ish, roughly give or take, about a month after your first 2, Tesla and Swift. And what makes McGregor interesting is that this is by far and away, I think, one could argue that this is the most polarizing hero in the entire game, just because it really depends on if you like his skills or not. There's some that I know love him, some that I know hate him. For me personally, I'm kind of in that very slim group that says, meh, I don't really care. I mean, he's cool. I think his skills have some really, really good uses. But I can also understand why people wouldn't like his skills. Before we talk about that, he is a $20 battle pass. Most of these heroes are going to be $20. Again, good value. Any of these passes are great value. He does get his exclusive weapon in season 3, which is a bit unfortunate that you have to wait so long for it, especially when you consider that he gets an entire season before the other defender gets theirs. This is obviously the better option of the 2. With that being said, I do believe he is the better defender between the 2. This is where we finally get into that weird mix of he's a great hero, but is he worth the time and the money that you'd have to spend to keep up with him compared to others? Now, this one's a little bit easier because it's still kind of early game, but this is where you're getting into that weird mix of he's not able to catch up to Williams, he's not able to catch up to Murphy, he's not able to catch up to Carlie. The only other defender that he's able to keep up with is going to be Adam and Lucius, but even then, it's kind of like, which one's better, Lucius or McGregor? A lot of people, there's a huge fan of McGregor's, but a lot of people would probably sit there and tell you Lucius is arguably better. But let's go over his skills, and we'll talk about really the main reason why he's such a polarizing character. But his auto attack deals 275% damage to one enemy. Nothing special with that. But then his tactics here is going to be Unyielding Heart. Prioritizes the front row, taunting 2 enemies and reducing their attack by 15% for 8 seconds. Absolutely fantastic. That second part. The first part is a bit tricky to work with because the whole taunting thing, it has such weird applications because it could work or it could not work. And if it works, cool. You killed McGregor faster. Awesome. Like, yeah, you did do 15% less damage, but now you killed McGregor faster. As we just talked about, or as I just talked about a couple minutes ago, having your heroes die faster kind of puts you at an inherent disadvantage, no? So like this is where it comes a little bit tricky. Yes, the 15% reduction is awesome, and it's also great that he allows the other defender to, have a little bit of health. But once McGregor goes down, once one of your two defenders goes down, you're now pretty much naked on one half of your lineup, and your back row attackers are going to be susceptible to attack now. It's the unfortunate part about McGregor. I think that it has a great tail end, but like, man, it's kind of like you got hit with a car, but then insurance said it's okay, we're going to pay you double what the car's worth, if that makes sense. Like, it's an awful, awful thing, but there is a pro to it. And I don't know where you guys stand. This is really the one I want to know in the comments. Like, I want to see everybody's part of this. I know that McGregor gets a lot of different answers, and I'm just curious to know where you guys stand. I think it's an alright perk, or alright skill. I don't think it's the end of the world. And then finally, he's going to be his passive. Reduces all damage taken in battle by 27% for this hero. Again, fantastic. You pair that with the extra 15% that he, takes less damage, reducing their attack for 15%, and he reduces all damage taken by 27%. Those two combined make him a really elite defender. But like, other than that, I mean, whatever. Nothing special in my opinion. Next, we're going to go over Adam. Now, Adam is going to be the second and the final defender that you get for Missile. He does release really, really late, and this is where we finally get into that whole, it is just really expensive to keep up. So firstly, in order to get him, you have to get the $20 pass, although he does become free way later on. And again, we're saying way later on, like probably a month or two after he releases, you'll be able to get him for free. But, if you want him, you have to spend the $20 on the battle pass. He's got good skills, but they're very, very situational. I don't like situational skills. I like blank coverage skills because I like to not have to worry about what I'm running. I like to just be able to go around smashing things. With Adam, unfortunately, it's very situational, at least in my opinion. But again, this is where we get into that dangerous game. If it is very hard to level up, you can get Adam to 5 stars, sure, but is he going to be able to keep up with literally any other hero released before him, considering there's a 2-week buffer between him and the one before, which is Morrison? It's a huge deal. And then the worst part is we haven't even talked about the 5th hero, which comes out after Adam. We're getting into this very, very expensive territory where it's just ridiculous. And this is where it becomes a whales game, is what it's called. If you can't spend to keep up and put him up to the wall of honor to keep him on par with others, it's not worth it, and you probably shouldn't be doing it. Let's go ahead and look at his skills really quickly, which is going to be his auto attack is going to deal physical damage to 205% to random enemy. Whatever, it's a random enemy, I don't care, it's an auto attack. His tactics here, this is where I say it gets pretty situational. So his tactic here is going to be counter defense, and enters a counter defense state for roughly 8.2 seconds after releasing the skill. Responds with a normal attack upon taking damage up to once per second. So it's essentially just like he's taking in damage, twisting it, and spitting it out. That's kind of what I'm getting from this. Whatever, fine, I guess. But again, very situational. Like, you have to. This is the thing with the 2 missile heroes. There's such a random mishmash of like stuff. Like, Adam's whole thing is predicated on, like, once you get him to 4 stars, it's fine. Your entire front row also receives the counter defense state. I think that does help a lot when it comes to missile, because you need to run Adam and McGregor together, considering McGregor is going to take all the heat. And if Adam has this 15% counter defense thing that he's running to this counter defense tactic, and he's applying that to McGregor, it becomes incredibly good. However, again, if you aren't running McGregor and Adam, this is where it becomes a little bit silly, because now you're doing nothing with this. Like, it's just kind of a not useless skill, but definitely a little bit trickier. And this is the other skill that I was curious to know what people thought about. Maybe I'm interpreting it wrong. I'm curious to know what you guys think. Please let me know if I'm interpreting it wrong. But regardless, I mean, fine skill, whatever. I'd say probably the lower tiers, though, because I think I had a debate with somebody a long time ago in the Discord about whether this actually just does like the base attack, or does this also include criticals? Does this also include this? Does this also include that? There's so many questions that I don't think that we have enough answers to make this like a top tier perk. And then finally, his passive is going to be in battle reduces all damage taken by your front row by 12%, with effects doubled for missile vehicle heroes in counter defense state. Again, fantastic if you're running him with McGregor. Adam and McGregor are probably the best 2 defenders to run together, in my opinion. I think once you have them together, it's a perfect sandwich. But if you separate either of them from one another, it's just like, who wants to eat a single piece of lettuce with nothing? And then who else, it's like putting bread and lettuce together and calling it a sandwich. If you have them separated, you have to run them together. I think together they're, again, the best duo, but separated, very, very, very situational. And then finally, we're going to go over Fiona. Fiona's the very last hero that you unlock in this entire game. Oh, by the way, Adam's exclusive weapon comes out in Season 4. I don't know if I mentioned that already or not, but it comes out in Season 4. And Fiona's exclusive weapon comes out in Season 5. She's the very last hero to unlock. She's the very last hero to get her exclusive weapon. She's just overall the hardest to level up. I don't have a whole lot of pros to say about Fiona. She's just expensive. She's hard to maintain. It's hard to keep up with. We're going to go over her skills in just a second, and you'll see what I'm talking about. Her auto attack is pretty basic, 342% of attack to one enemy. Physical damage, cool. We like that. Fires rocket, that her tactic is fire rockets that deal physical damage equal to 540% of attack to all enemies. I do like this. I really do like this because I like it on the Kim too. I just, physical damage has always been one of those ones that I'm not sure about. It is great. Don't get me wrong, I think the skill is pretty good, but is this something to be clamoring and spending thousands of dollars just on Fiona for? Probably not, considering you have to wait until Season 5 to get her exclusive weapon. With all things being considered, like, this skill is good, but it's not worth trouble or the money it takes to get there. And finally, your passive is boosts this hero's physical damage by 26%. Cool. All in all, like, there's a bunch of stuff you can do to make sure that your missile squad is keeping up. You can go ahead and do your missile mastery. Right here, you can go ahead and do your siege to seize, your special forces, your heroes. Like, you can do the missile here. There's so much that you can do. However, the only main issue that I'm noticing is that it's just the fact that missile is so expensive to run. So unless you're somebody that's going to drop thousands of dollars onto this game, running missiles is not an option. I think that if you're a whale or a heavy spending player, absolutely fantastic. And don't get me wrong, again, I still think it is the best squad, or not the best, but the strongest squad in the entire game, but only if you have the money. If you're a free-to-play or very low spender, or you're a min-maxing account, your two best bets are going to be tank or aircraft. I wouldn't even try to waste your time or your breath or your energy on missile just because of how expensive it is and how hard it is to maintain and keep up with. I know that might get a little bit of fight back or, kickback or whatever, but that's just kind of the truth. I've spent thousands on this game, and I still, like, if I really wanted to, sure, I could have a strong missile squad, but I know how much I've spent, and I know how hard it is to keep up with. I can only imagine what it's like for somebody that's spending less than me or has less to spend. That's going to be it for me. Thank you all so much for watching. I hope that this video was informational for you. If you guys aren't already, make sure that you're subscribing, liking the video, and commenting down below. And that's going to be it for me. Jelly out. Peace.